Well, hello everyone, and thank you for tuning in to our speaker series where we aim to educate people about the dairy industry. Today's guest is Dr. Victor Cabrera, professor and extension specialist in dairy management at the University of Wisconsin-Madison Dairy Science Department. So welcome, Victor, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
Thanks, Alika, and thanks to all the team of Farm Robotics for making this possible. Very glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we first want to start off with asking, what is your focus at UW-Madison? And can you also talk about your Dairy Brain project that you're working on?
Sure, very excited about those two things. I mean, I started in UW-Madison about 12, 13 years gonna be now. And my focus has been on connecting the physiology, biology of the dairy cows in production systems with the economics. And I have done that on my team with my group, developing these decision support tools that are connection of simulation models, optimization, in order to help dairy producers make better decisions about uh, reproductive programs, about health economics, about financials as well, about nutrition, et cetera, et cetera. The idea is always uh, under the understanding that dairy producers will be very interested on improving their profitability and performance overall. And that can be better done by projecting what's going to be the future, depending on the decision they do today. So we have a number of decision support tools on my website. And in certain way, that has been the motivation, the inspiration for this Dairy Brain project you were mentioning. Because in order to use these tools, these are become actually farm specific. So they need to be actually parameterized to how the dairy farm functions. And that's done by connecting the data of the farm with these tools. Like, for example, what is the herd size, or what's the culling rate or reproductive performance, et cetera, on the farm. And all these data change all the time, and they are connected as well with the data of the markets, the prices, etc. And there has been always a disconnection of using the tools more efficiently, more permanently, and the fact that farmers need to collect this data every time they need to use and enter into these tools. So in certain way, the dairy brain wants to cover that gap. Uh, Farmers are inundated. They are rich in data, but they are poor in decisions using this data. And even more, I would go one step further. They are a little behind than other industries on using integrated data. Uh, we all know that the data from the milking parlor doesn't talk with the feed efficiency or the feed data, and that data doesn't connect directly with the genomics data, for example. If a farmer at some point wants to do the decision with all this data, they actually require, they need to do manually certain connection of data streams. What we are doing in the dairy brain in a very short summary is basically trying to connect all this data, but in real time. It needs to be a permanent process and connected to these decision support tools. So actually dairy farmers can make much better decisions, but based on their own data. And so we have several components on the dairy brain, but the last thing I want to mention about the dairy brain project is the fact that actually it is a very interdisciplinary project in which we have a lot of data scientists, computer scientists, and obviously dairy and animal scientists together working on this idea.
If a farmer is able, like with our system, to improve their compliance for their different reproductive protocols, can you talk about a little more specifically on what the health and economic benefits are to farmers that they'll experience just by increasing those percentage points?
Yes, I mean, reproductive entails a number of potential benefits on the farm. I mean, the most important ones, and we have actually several presentations and papers discussing that. One of them, for example, detailing what are the most important economic factors of reproduction. And one of them certainly is production, right? I mean, even if we assume the cows will produce the same, genetically and their potential, the genetic potential is the same, even if they produce the same, just because they are getting pregnant at a better time during their life cycles, they overall, as a herd, will produce more. Now, there are evidences that cows actually over time will improve productivity as well, which would be an additional benefit. But even without counting that, our models demonstrate how getting the cows pregnant more efficiently in their cycles will improve production. And that's very important because we know for every additional marginal milk we are producing, we're going to have more profitability, right? So that's one. The second one, very important, is the production of additional replacements. I mean, we want to have more replacements from within the farm, and even if if we have more replacements, we have greater opportunities to select better our animals because we have more replacements. Or nowadays, I mean, there are other initiatives like using genomics. We can use genomics only at the measure of having more replacements. Otherwise, I mean, yes, we can test all our animals and we can use later in their life. But one of the important uses of genomics, for example, is to select the best animals to keep in the herd once they are born. But we can do that only if we have enough replacements or more than needed replacements. Kind of the same thing if we're gonna use other technologies like sex semen combined with beef semen. That's very popular nowadays, for example. And that can be done only, and we have demonstrated this in several papers, if we have good reproductive performance. So those opportunities come as we improve reproductive performance. Along those lines, for example, other important factor in reproduction is the culling. I mean, when we have better reproductive performance, we have the opportunity of selecting the best animals we want to keep. But as well, we are kind of, indeed, we're going to have less cullings that are not voluntary because of reproductive failure. So there will be less cows that are being culled because they didn't get pregnant. But the other thing that's actually somehow ignored is the fact that we know there are risks of the animals as they move throughout their life to being culled for other reasons, health reasons, and those will increase as they get later in their lactation. So if we have the cows efficiently being pregnant, our risks of culling will decrease, and that's a cost, a direct cost on the herd, basically. Okay. So the other thing that's important to mention is that normally in order to improve reproductive performance, likely we will need to invest. So here comes the issue or the decision of return on investment, right? How much we invest, how much we're gonna get back. And in our analysis, in almost every single case, always our return was much better than the investment. So normally what we're gonna gain by using better synchronization programs, more technologies to detect estrus, or anything that will improve reproductive performance, more labor, more people, will return more than the investment, and therefore will have a good return. The last thing I would like to mention about this is that our models and all our analysis show that as we improve reproductive performance, there will be always a gain on profitability. And profitability, I'm referring after paying for the investment I mentioned before. And so, but this gain will start decreasing as we move further and further in better reproductive performance. If we go above 30% 21-day pregnancy rate, which nowadays could be considered a good reproductive performance, we're going to keep gaining money as we go from 30 to 35. And I have seen farms having even 40%, which is exceptional, for example. But the gain every time is going to be lower. And we need to keep that in mind. And I think it's important to mention because for on one side, we're gonna keep gaining, but we need to be conscious that the gains will reach a point in which there would be a trade-off of reproduction and profitability, right? Like for example, normally we don't realize this until we see the numbers about the number of pregnant cows and the number of dry cows. If we have better reproductive performance, we're going to increase our pregnant cows on average on the herd from, let's say, 45%, 50% is not unusual. We can have up to 60% of pregnant cows. But what that entails at the end as well is that we will have, as an average of the population of the herd, more dry cows. And that is a trade-off of having more pregnant cows. So in every point in time, if we are talking of herds, the majority in the US that are non-seasonal, we will have less cows producing at one point in time, right? Normally, those will produce more than in the other case, but we need to keep that into consideration.
That's super interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Kind of digging a little deeper into that, you know, with us currently working on our system SureShot, if we're able to prove the concept, go to market, and you know expand potentially globally, what are the potential health benefits that you perceive cows can receive as the result of farmers utilizing our system SureShot?
Well, I think a number of benefits. I mean, starting from welfare, because we all know that the interaction between humans and animals will always have a risk of abuse or welfare issues on the herd. So, I mean, there may be a happy medium, but in general, the least the contact between humans and animals seems to improve welfare. And seems like your system will qualify on that sense. But I mean, to me, it seems fascinating the fact that you can actually apply and provide every single shot required by the animals automatically as they are passing through certain place within the farm. I think that's a huge saving cost on labor. I have seen many farms that will have a lot of issues finding the cows, depending on the size of the farm, obviously, after they have been milked, for example, in order to do the synchronization program. So I can envision your system, the compliance to those synchronization programs will be much higher than doing by people, right? And we will have much easier time finding the cows that require the exact shot at the exact time. That's a huge benefit on any farm. I mean, you can easy labor for other labor related tasks rather than being following the cows and trying to find the cows within the herd.
Right. Yeah. No, I was just going to add, I think ultimately for us, you know, it's not necessarily a goal of ours to replace labor completely, because there are employees that do a good job. And, you know, at the end of the day, if the dairy farmer prefers, you know, he could always reposition those employees towards a higher priority area and, you know, potentially pay these individuals more. So I think automation in general is really meant to help make our lives easier, not so much replace. But yeah, we appreciate your feedback on our system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's we are living in an exciting time in which we can try all these different new technologies that I think are reshaping the way we do business in the dairy industry.
Absolutely.
I agree. And then just circling back to what we talked about in the beginning of, you know, farmers being able to spend their time making better management decisions and higher value added activities than, you know, just giving a shot which is a low skill level task. And if they're able to spend, less of their time training new labor or actually giving the shots themselves, they can make better management decisions and have a better focus. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And just to touch a little bit further on what you were talking about, our system is going to have that data in real time. So how do you see the dairy farmers being able to make different decisions specifically on their dairy? So where do you see that value being created for the dairy farmers?
We do believe, thanks for the question, Connor. We do believe there is a lot of value added on data usage in several points of dairy farms. And the idea is that they can do decisions at different levels of time. Like, for example, a daily decision of simple improving feed efficiency, right? Many farmers would not do that decision on a daily basis because they don't have a daily calculation of feed efficiency that requires feed on one side and production on the other side to be connected every single day. Even more, it could be done every single milking time, right? But that's what we call basically a tool that would be a dashboarding tool. Basically, our calculations are, on that case, in certain way, trivial, very simple. The major effort is connecting the data. But we want to go much beyond that because we are thinking on predictive tools. Like, for example, I want to know how efficient is going to be the decision of call this cow out of the herd or keeping the cow today. And in order to do that decision, I need to project what's going to happen 5 years from now on that spot or slot where the cow is compared to replacing the animal today. And in order to do all that calculation, I will need to feed a model with all the data interconnected. And that data will include genomics information, genetics, whatever is available, feed, obviously all the management data, health information, et cetera, et cetera. And actually our ultimate level of tools we are planning are what we call the prescriptive tools. And those will include some level of optimization, whether it is maximization or minimization or a combination of both, in which actually the tool itself should be able to suggest what's the best course of action. And so, I mean, we don't think, we think the participation of the farmer or the farm manager is critical always, and it will continue to be. But we can facilitate the work of the decision maker by providing some suggestions and actually keep those suggestions regardless of what the final action has been. And we can compare with time which of the actions would have been better at that point in time. Like, for example, simple things like nutritional grouping of animals. Many farmers would prefer to give just one diet to all the lactating cows because it's simpler, because it works. But really, we don't know how much money we are leaving behind because we are wasting nutrients. And probably maybe we can even produce more with the same amount of nutrients. But in order to do that, we need several layers of information that need to be fed to a model that's not only calculate those interactions, but also propose which animals should be in which pens at every point in time we want to move the animals, for example.
Switching our gears over to the reproduction side of things and some tools associated with that you've dealt with. So what were some results and insights that you gathered from the Repro Money program? And would you mind just briefly explaining to the audience, what the Repro Money program entails?
Yes, there was a very nice extension program that we call team-based farm-oriented or farm-specific task force, basically. So the main concept of this Repro Money, which was similar previously We had a project at the university that was called Milk Money as well. And we have at the moment actually one that we call Data Money. But the main idea is actually to put together a group from a farm and facilitate the development of one specific area of management with that team. And the team will be composed by the farm owner, potentially, the farm manager, the veterinarian, depending. In this case, in Repro Money, the veterinarian was almost for sure being part of the team. Even the nutritionist could be part of that. The extension agent that's in the area, it's a key person that would be there. And if they are, for example, using services of some AI company, those would be also part of the team. And the idea of us was to facilitate all these people getting together frequently, once every 2 months, every 3 months, and actually propose goals for improvement, in this case, in the area of reproduction. And for example, the first meeting consisted on actually have a background of the performance of reproduction on the farm, but not only talking, because it was actually data intense as well. We went there and we collect all the data ahead of time. And during the meeting, actually, we presented what was the performance of the farm. I mean, including the 21-day pregnancy rate, number of pregnant cows, abortions, everything. And then based on that, we only facilitated the team, but they proposed their goals. Like, for example, if they got 18% pregnancy rate, they said, our goal within a year is to reach 22% of pregnancy rate. And there, for example, we had some tools that said how much that will entail in additional profitability if you improve 4 percentage points your reproduction program, right? And what would be the potential additional investment you will require to get there? What are the reproductive programs that would be potentially more efficient on your farm? And we could, I mean, we got a team of very high, well-known reproductive physiologists that could provide some insights on how that specific farm would be better off in reproduction. And basically, the idea was to facilitate the process, but they were the owners of that process, and they made it to happen. So at the end, we followed this in a number of farms. We got a person actually hired specifically to manage all this and work directly with all these teams and with close contact with the extension agents. That's key in our case. And so we got a baseline of the farm on how they were performing, and we got a mid-term performance, and every year we were keeping up with how were the improvements in each one of the farms. I mean, it is not an easy task because there are many other confounding factors that will change the reproductive performance. They will have other goals on the farm. They need to buy more animals. They need to sell some animals. They need to do changes. At the same time, they are improving the reproduction. They may be doing changes on the milking parlor, and everything affects, right? But we were able to document actually the improvement on those farms that participated of the Repro Money. And we do know at the moment that some of the farmers actually by themselves have continued doing something like that because they like the system, how that promotes improvement across time.
Yeah, thank you so much for doing that program. We've actually benefited a lot from just looking at the results of that and trying to calculate how much more money a farmer could potentially make if they're able to, increase their percentage points by 4. Just to wrap everything off, we want to thank you for being a part of this series with us. And is there anything else you would like to talk about or emphasize from our discussion earlier before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank for the opportunity to share some ideas here, and looking forward to see the development of your technology and being out there in the farms. I think it's going to make a difference.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. And thanks again for your time. Ultimately, we just want to bring in experts like yourself to really help educate the dairy industry. So thank you again for your time. We appreciate it.